Hi there, I'm Nicole. I come to you as a friend and a neighbor in the hope that we can empower our community by reestablishing an age old concept, the third space. While the third space has a rich history in American society and has quite a few definitions, I'd like to address its definition as a space where community members can gather outside of home and the workplace. Our community is a set of moving parts that are constantly adapting and rearranging. Trends come and go, but the impact of industrial development stays. And I think there are things we can do on multiple levels, but especially as community members, to absorb the impact and manipulate it to our advantage. So, what I'm getting at is that the incorporation of third spaces in the greater Grand Rapids area is imperative to community growth. There's an article featured in the Planning Commissioner's Journal that really resonates with the concept that historical events and zoning developments can make or break community. Although it was written in the late 90s, the rhetoric is still relevant and topical to our postmodernist society. And the author, Ray Oldenburg, who actually came up with the concept of the third space, expresses how residential areas built post World War II have been designed to shield people from community instead of nudging them towards it. And I think that among many solutions to the isolationist problem, the idea of a third space could help bridge the gap between separate pockets of the population. Similarly, I feel like we've all heard the anecdote that kids these days are never outside. They always just have their noses glued to their iPads. And then we inevitably groan at the age old pattern of older generations scorning the new ones. I'd like to hold some space, though, for a second to contemplate this idea. While the way in which the rhetoric gets delivered is less than helpful, there is some hint of truth in that statement, objectively speaking. The youth is much more likely to spend their free time engaging with technological media, as I was, but I argue that it's not technology itself that is the root of the issue. Think about it this way. Considering the structure of our city, what else are they supposed to do, realistically? The youth and the public in general should not be blamed for how they exist within these lonesome confines. And as civic actors and public intellectuals, we must do what we can to create systems and space for all to gather safely and accessibly. On a similar note, I'd like to touch on how I had the opportunity to speak with a community powerhouse, Franny Dykema. We spoke specifically about how social wellness has taken a hit in Grand Rapids due to the immense emphasis on capital exchange. And an idea that we explored is that in a setting where inflation and price gouging have increased while wages have remained stagnant, social drought's inevitable, really. Social betterment requires social change. We can't just rely on capital exchange to power our community, as a community should encompass all of its members, not simply the wealthy and the elite. To exclude the poor and the marginalized is really doing ourselves a great disservice. Some might argue that, incorporating third spaces could be perceived as less of a priority. It's not an emergent situation, and there are aspects of the city that need more imminent attention, like growing housing costs, need for a robust public transportation system, the endless cycle of road construction and reconstruction with which we're all familiar. But I believe that the presence of one issue does not eliminate the need to, solve another. The topic may not be life or death, but that doesn't necessarily minimize the detriment that isolation has on the quality of life of Grand Rapids community members. There's always room for improvement, and these issues aren't mutually exclusive. Another perspective is that the cost might seem unattainable and undesirable, but I'm inclined to disagree. Much like Franny and I had discussed, there are ways to subvert that cost, much like the utilization of donation based entry, for example. And, I know that this seems like a daunting issue, and it's easy to think, well, what could I possibly do? But it's worth noting that individual change is radical change. There are many things we can do, like supporting small and local businesses, getting a library card to help us keep our libraries open, hosting neighborhood events is a great and affordable way to connect with the community. And, when addressing social change, I feel like many of us feel like our efforts are a drop in a bucket. However, small change is real change, and changing the world of just one person is as significant a step forward as any. Thank you for listening.